The award-winning Tennessee WildCast is on the air with the latest on hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife watching, and all things outdoors. Make welcome your host, drummer and outdoor expert novice, Jason Harmon.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Tennessee WildCast. We're glad you're tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we've got a great show for you today. It's springtime, and the animals are out moving around, and we've got bear activity. So that's what the topic's going to be today. And we're excited to have Dan Gibbs with us. He's the black bear coordinator for the state, and Sevier County Wildlife Officer David Sexton. We're glad to have him. And then Matt Cameron, communications coordinator for the East Tennessee region. And we're just glad to have everybody here. How y'all doing?
Well,
doing good.
Awesome. One thing I wanted to touch on before we get started and jump into these questions and things that we have today is let people know about this hat. I was lucky to grab one the other day when I ran by the office for a few minutes, and it's a pretty cool hat. It's got the vented back where it's a little more summer style than what we had on the last hat that was available. So you can go to gooutdoorstennessee.com. It's under the license catalog under specialty, and you can pick one up for $20, and the money that goes to purchase this helps us put on other programs, and it goes to our foundation. So our foundation can help us introduce the outdoors to other folks and people who don't get a chance to or want to learn how. So that's what that's all about. So anyway, you guys should go get you one. It's a pretty cool little hat.
Yeah, the state employees don't get a free one, I guess, huh?
No, not too many. Some of them maybe get passed around, but yeah. So anyway, I appreciate you guys being with us. We've had both of these guys on the show in the past, and we always know when y'all are on. He said, we've had a higher activity. He's been getting calls from the media and things like that, and springtime, I guess, is when they start moving. So we're gonna learn more about how we can better interact with these guys and make things better for the bear and for the humans. I think that's what we need to be thinking about. So, Matt, I'll let you kick it off. What do you want to start with today?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I have limited experience with bears. 17 years with the agency, and been trying to educate folks in the public about them. So I know a little bit, but I got two guys with us that know a lot. And I guess a question for either one of you want to jump in. I see bear activity increase greatly in the springtime and then the late summer, early fall. And I think it's because late spring is they came out of their dens. There's not a lot of natural food available, and the berries, soft mass hasn't come in yet. So we see a lot of nuisance activity right now. And then again in the fall, before the hard mass, the nuts and things start to drop, we see an uptick in bear activity then. Is that generally true?
yes. It is. The other thing that you can add to that scenario is the fact that all the juvenile males are dispersing. So they're moving around quite a bit, trying to set up the home range, and so they'll venture into areas that you may not normally see bears. So that's another aspect for that. That's those springtime movements and issues that we have.
Go ahead, David.
This time of year is typically a time that we do have a lot of bear movement. Like you said before, you're exactly right, Matt. There's no food there. There's no food available out there for the bear right now until the berries do ripen, and then we'll have about a month, maybe reprieve, where they do go to those and eat. And then from probably the first week in July till the acorns really set on the trees in the fall, we have another large, rather lengthy time there that we have a lot of bear activity in and around all of East Tennessee, not just Gatlinburg or places like Gatlinburg.
Okay. All right. So we need to be extra vigilant, I guess, rather in the springtime and then again in the late summer on keeping bears from accessing human foods. I know that's always good practice, but that seems to be the two heaviest times for nuisance bear activity. And along those lines, I guess I'll throw this one at David because he works Sevier County, but a lot of people are asking the question, the national parks have been closed, haven't had as many visitors to the area as we normally have, and you would expect nuisance bear activity to decrease because of that. But from my discussions with you and with your partner, Gene Parker, that hasn't been the case. Can you explain what's going on with the pandemic and how it's affected bear activity?
Well, what's happened is we have obviously fewer visitors to in and around the park, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, those areas where normally we have large populace of people during this time of year through the summer. And these bears have typically got into trash and so forth in those areas, which we do not want them to do to begin with. But right now what we're seeing is the bears are going to residential areas where there is trash present. So we do have some bear activity on the mountain with the residents there. They're on the ski mountain area of Gatlinburg. And then they're also pushing out into other areas that we typically do not see them at this time of year, into more residential areas in and around Sevierville, the lower end of Pigeon Forge, those areas there in residential areas, because that's where obviously the garbage is, right? So it's you would think with not as many people there that our calls would diminish, but they really haven't this year. They've stayed pretty steady. And unfortunately, we've had some get in cars and get in homes. And those are the ones that we're really trying to concentrate on right now and try to move those animals from those areas that are causing those issues.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, you spoke about yearling males earlier, and after seeing a video of that one that got inside the cabin at Gatlinburg, it looked to me to be a yearling. I don't know if it was a male or a female. And then there were a couple more bears outside that looked yearling or young to me. Have you saw those videos, and do you have any idea of the age of those bears?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we've seen the same videos or not. There's a lot of videos floating around right now, but like I said, that's a typical thing this time of year to see those young bears moving around and getting into trouble. But the key, as David has said, it's a food issue is the primary thing that's driving this issue every spring.
And you and I have talked about this before, but the people that were staying in that cabin at the time weren't really responsible for that bear behavior. They just happened to show up and come through an open door. And you talk about how it's the people who stayed there previously may have habituated those bears. Talk about how important that is for the people that come behind you to not do this kind of thing.
It is important. And, despite what a lot of people think, it's not cute to see a bear eating out of someone's hand or on the front porch of a cabin. It can be a dangerous thing, and it's something that we're really concerned with. And we don't want to see it. As David said, that's top priority for those guys, is trying to deal with these bears that are on porches and getting in vehicles. So people need to think about the fact that their actions are going to impact bears. Whatever they do, whether it's going to impact bears in a good way or a bad way. And we want people to impact them in a good way and store their trash properly. As tempting as it is, don't feed those bears. We want people, for a lot of people, this is the first time they've ever seen a bear. And we understand that, and we want them to enjoy that. But, get those pictures at a distance and take a look at it and then start making some noise and get it out of there. And we don't want it to get used to being around people and think it's okay to do that, because the next folks that come along, they're just caught flat-footed, so to speak, and have no idea. And then they walk around the corner and they're face-to-face to a bear that's coming to look for food that it received from the previous guests. So huge responsibility that people don't realize they have as far as taking care of things for the next person coming along. And you hope that the person, if you're in the cabin now, you hope the people prior to you didn't feed bears. You have to look at it that way.
David, I had a question kind of along those same lines. Are you seeing more traffic in that area, like in the Smoky Mountains National Park? Or are they opening up right now? We're in mid-May. The pandemic's still kind of strong. Some people are opening things up, but are we starting to see more tourists hit that area? And what are we doing if we aren't, or what is the community doing to try to educate folks that are coming in about feeding these bears?
Right now, the traffic has increased significantly from just 3 weeks ago. The park opened up this past Saturday, so that has drawn quite a few people back to the area to go into the park. But with that, we're also getting more people staying in cabins and hotels and those type establishments now. So we're seeing an increase in traffic. The problem is, like I've said before, with the amount of people coming and going weekly in these areas, it's really hard to educate.
That is one of the biggest challenges for us in Gatlinburg and the surrounding communities, all those gateway communities around the park, is that every Friday afternoon you've got a whole new group of people to educate. You're trying to educate the residents, and you only have a short amount of time to get the attention of these folks. There's so much going on, and so we utilize some things they call geofencing and just digital marketing, and we tried to reach people that through Facebook and internet searches. We try to reach these people before they ever even got to Gatlinburg in some cases, when they were still sitting in front of their computer in Chicago or Indianapolis or Atlanta and searching for cabin rental opportunities in the Sevier and Blount County area, and threw up some ads about bear safety and things like that. And then we also built those virtual fences around hot spots, areas where we have a lot more bear activity. And when people went into those areas, if they had their phones on or on Facebook, they may get a pop-up message or something. So in a 3-month period, we've had over almost 1.8 million sets of eyes look at a lot of their stuff. And we got a lot of we click through where they actually click on it and read it and move forward. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but the industry standard, we were well above that. So we're really pleased with that. But another thing we're trying to do is try to get we constantly have these cabin owners asking us, hey, do you have any resources that we can put in our cabin to help educate people? And I believe tomorrow I'm supposed to get the first shipment of the new Bearwise flyer that we just put together about vacationing in bear country. And everybody thinks that, hey, I'm not going to see a bear unless I go up in the Smoky Mountains National Park. And this piece of information, the goal there is to make people realize, hey, you're in bear country. Even if you're coming to this area to recreate, at the amusement parks or shopping or whatever it may be, you got just as high probability of seeing a bear as someone going up into the park. And so it really tries to educate people on things they can do to avoid habituating those bears to people and getting them hung on people food. So that's something new coming, and we're hoping to that a lot of these groups that rent these cabins and manage them for the owners will make the investment to go onto the Bearwise site and purchase those flyers and get them in their cabins, and hopefully people take time to read them and get some good information.
Well, while we're on that topic, I know it's kind of further down than we wanted to hit on this, but tell folks what Bearwise is. What is Bearwise? Bearwise
is it's a website, bearwise.org, and it's a program that was initiated and organized by all the state wildlife agencies in the southeastern United States. And because everybody's dealing with the same types of issues, bear populations are reclaiming former range all over the southeast. Numbers are going up. Conflicts with people are increasing, and the conflicts are almost always associated with people not doing the right thing as far as attractants, whether it's food such as trash or bird seed, pet foods outside, a lot of different things will attract bears. So the site is designed to try to teach people how to live responsibly with black bears and the things they can do to be proactive versus reactive. And that's what we as an agency want people to do, is to learn how to coexist with bears and be proactive and make those changes on the front end, so David and his guys don't have to come out there and deal with the issues and make tough decisions regarding bears. So that's the whole point of Bearwise, and there's a lot of good resources there. It's growing every day. It's going to be a great future for it. I suspect big things this year. And so I encourage everybody to get on there and take a look at that site.
What are the laws behind feeding? Is there anything that prohibits people from putting out food or doing things like that?
I'll mention one thing that David followed. He can talk about Gatlinburg, but on a statewide basis, there is no statute that prohibits the feeding of bears. And when we're talking about feeding bears, we talk about two different things. We talk about direct feeding and indirect feeding. Direct feeding would be standing there at the animal and tossing food to it. Indirect feeding would be having bears come into your property and getting and things like the bird feeding the trash and the person not doing something to alleviate that situation. But in the entire state, as far as state law goes, that is not illegal in Tennessee.
In Gatlinburg city limit proper, they are not allowed to intentionally feed a bear, whether by hand, by leaving food out, any of that. Even indirect feeding can be cited for in Gatlinburg. We have a lot of rental properties outside the city of Gatlinburg. So we have a large number of complaints that come in from these cabin companies throughout the whole county about bears, and it's 100% food-related issues with either garbage or people leaving food in their vehicles and the bear getting in the vehicle, leaving their vehicles unlocked. As I think we've talked before on this show, bears have figured out how to open up car doors. So it's very important to make sure that your vehicles are secured and locked. So it's an ongoing issue that, people are going to have to take responsibility for. That's the only way that it's going to get better is by individuals taking personal responsibility for their garbage or leaving food accessible to a bear.
One thing that I'll throw in here, because I've actually gotten several emails and calls, and David and I have actually talked a couple of times this week on some issues, but people are regularly will email us and say, hey, can you come get this bear? We live in a neighborhood and there's a lot of kids. And we tell people, you have to understand that when you live in East Tennessee and you live in bear country, coming and moving that bear out of your neighborhood is not the answer. If there's food that's attracted to your neighborhood and you move that bear, it's just going to create a space for another bear to come in. So the first part of that scenario is you need to figure out what's attracting the bear to your property and address that issue. But secondly, what I wanted to point out is people need to teach their kids what to do if they see a bear. And you can find that information on the Bear Watch site as well. But, my kids understood it from a very young age, what to do, and, make noise, go tell an adult you've seen the bear. And, we don't want people to live in fear. Absolutely not. I mean, attacks from black bears is a very rare thing. And so we don't want people to live in fear, but you have to live smart. And that means, as Matt said, you have to be responsible. If you're living in bear country, there's just things you have to do that are different if you're not. And the thing about bears in Tennessee is you may not be living in bear country today, but by the end of this year, you may be, because the bears are expanding their range. We call it recolonization. Historically, bears range the entire state of Tennessee, and they're moving westward, and they're also moving northward out of Georgia, out of Mississippi potentially in the near future. They're moving south out of Kentucky, and they're moving east out of Arkansas. So, we're surrounded by states that have bears, and this issue is going to continue to face more and more people on an annual basis.
It's going to change a lot of habits. Habits are going to have to change. Just like, living in Middle Tennessee, I'm one of those that'll throw my trash over the fence, but in future, I may have to be thinking more about that and what I'm doing and not doing that, because there's going to be bears maybe passing through, and I'll be part of the problem as well.
Well, everybody's definition of Middle Tennessee is different, and I grew up in Middle Tennessee, and I consider counties like Smith County Middle Tennessee. And we've got breeding populations of bears, reproducing populations of bears in Smith County. So it's coming to a backyard near you. So,
and that's real close to my backyard.
It is. And, we've already tried to start working on some initiatives to educate people and have some of these materials available at fairs. And, the Plateau, Cookeville, north of Cookeville and Overton County, Pickett County, even down south along the Georgia line down there, we're seeing more and more sightings on an annual basis. So it's coming, and it's a lot better to be proactive than reactive. And David can preach that message well on a daily basis. So.
Awesome. That's good information. I'm glad we're doing this show. Is there anything else y'all want to touch on along these lines, or do you want to touch on that there are bear seasons that people may want to hunt these bears or do things, that there are times of the year that's an option?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a real good point. We're getting a lot of inquiries on the North Plateau, up in the Campbell County, Claiborne County area, parts of Scott, and even over north of Cookeville about hunting seasons. And our agency over the past 3 summers spent a great amount of time and resources doing some density estimates, and we'll be getting those results will start coming in July. We won't have all 3 years, but we should have the first 2 years analysis from the University of Tennessee in July. So as we move forward, we'll utilize that to help us make decisions about when and how you open up new areas to hunting opportunity. And all those areas will eventually be open up to hunting. But the message that I really want people to understand is most biologists will tell you that hunting doesn't have a whole lot of impact on dealing with nuisance bear behavior. Human conflict issues are typically not going to be alleviated through hunting. And it's important for people to understand that. A lot of times those bears just aren't available to hunters because they're in a neighborhood and people aren't going to hunt neighborhoods, or the time of year right now there's no hunting season anywhere. So hunting season is not going to help issues right now. So while we see hunting being opened up in those areas in the future, people have to understand that's not the silver bullet that's going to make their problems go away. They've got to address these issues, as I said, in a proactive way.
And this may be for both of them. We're probably running out of time, and we could talk for 30 minutes on it. But talk about the black bear matrix and how that acts as a guide for folks like David to use when dealing with nuisance bear issues. We don't just go out and haphazardly euthanize bears. We have a system.
Yeah, I'll mention that, and David can throw in some comments on how it works for him. But it was something that we put together a few years ago just for consistency among our field personnel. And it looks at 2 primary things regarding a bear when a call comes in. It looks at what they're feeding on, whether it be natural foods or human provided foods. And it also looks at their behavior and their reaction towards people. So the low end is somebody walks in their backyard and a bear's eating cherries out of a wild cherry tree in their backyard, and the bear sees them and it runs off. So it's eating natural foods and it has a fear of humans. So, that's just a bear taking advantage of a wild food source, and that's a natural thing. The opposite end of that is a bear that is keying in on garbage and enters a home or a vehicle and has no fear of people whatsoever. It may even go into a home while people are in there. And, that's the opposite end of the spectrum, where we really don't want that going on at all. And then all the different scenarios in between with different options of technical assistance versus whether or not you trap it. And a lot of people think trapping and moving the animal is the answer. And we do that to some extent, and David can give some more information on this, but we really don't want to trap and move animals anymore than we have to, because number one, it teaches people that, hey, they'll just come get it, so we don't have to address our issue. And 2, we don't want to take somebody else's problem to someone's problem to someone else. And the idea that Tennessee has areas where you can drop a bear off and it won't impact people, those areas just don't exist anymore. There was a study recently done in the park And the vast majority of those bears collared in the park at some time during the year left the park. So even Great Smoky Mountains National Park is not rugged and rural enough for bears to not come out of the area.
One of the aspects that we look at, and we got this from the national park with Kendall Ozier when he was there in the national park. He was a well-known park biologist there that dealt with bears for years, is whether the bear is day active or night active. A wild bear is typically a nocturnal type animal. Early in the evening till early in the morning, then usually they go and bed down during the heat of the day or during the daylight hours. So when we have one that is day active and entering cars, trying to enter homes, that type of thing, those are the ones that we really have to look at hard to see if we're going to move, whether that they've done enough that warrants euthanasia. And when we do have to go the euthanasia route, we really have to document what this bear was doing. That we're just not doing it just because we want to. There has to be complete documentation of why that we did that for that particular animal. But a lot of our bear calls, I think in Sevier County this spring we've received 70 bear complaints already this spring, which is kind of high for this early in the year. And the majority of those you can take care of over the phone. You can, talk to the people and, get in my garbage. Well, we're going to have to do something about your garbage. Some of them, we're getting a lot of livestock, such as chickens being killed right now. I know 5 different locations across the county. Parents have got into people with all their chickens, get into homes, get into cars. That's happening during the daylight hours. Those are ones we really have to look at hard as to whether, what are we going to do with those animals? But most of the time, a lot of it can be taken care of with a phone call and just teaching the person over the phone what they need to do or not do. So the majority of our calls can be handled that way. But when the bear does become destructive and he ends up in that section of our bear matrix that says euthanasia or removal, then that's what we have to do. I mean, because a lot of times they'll say, well, why the bear got in the house? How come you just can't move it somewhere? Well, I'm taking a problem from here and I'm just giving that problem to somebody else elsewhere. The bear's not going to change the behavior if they're already ingrained in that behavior. So why take a problem here and give it to somebody else, especially if it's a destructive?
There's so much knowledge that y'all just shared right there. 2 things that stick out in my mind, and I'll shut up, but personal responsibility for everybody in bear country to do what's right to keep from habituating them, and education. I heard that from both those guys right there that, we have to get the word out somehow. Bearwise.org is doing a great job of that, and all the other avenues that we're using there. But that's great stuff. I can't thank y'all enough for jumping in here and trying to help us alleviate these bear issues in East Tennessee.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. I know, like Matt said, bearwise.org, and even our website, tnwildlife.org, has a lot of information. I know Dan's worked real hard on that to try to beef it up and improve that. And there's a lot of knowledge right there that you could tap into and learn a lot. So I do appreciate you guys jumping on. And I know it's a weird time right now being quarantined and having to do shows like this, but I appreciate y'all being willing to jump in and talk about this, and especially this time of year, it's really needed. So good work. Y'all are doing great work out there, and I appreciate that too.
Thank you.
See you guys later.
All right, well, that'll do it for Tennessee WildCast, and we thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Stay connected with TWRA by visiting our website at tnwildlife.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hey, it's all about Tennessee wildlife. It's what we do. Tennessee WildCast will be on the air again next week. We'll see you then.